While not the lead character of the Masters of the Universe brand, we'll leave that to She-Ra and He-Man, Skeletor, Man-E-Faces is actually one of the most important, if not popular, characters in the brand, and the reasons for this go a lot deeper than just his bright colors, his innovative features, or, well, the fact that.
And many faces? You take center patrol since you have many faces.
And if one were gauging popularity by how many national holidays you have, well, the lone He-Man holiday is still centered around Bring Manny Faces to Work Day. Still one of my favorites. Well, Arbor Day isn't listening, right? In fact, almost every Masters of the Universe line gets a Manny Faces. It's just, there's something so cool about that tactile feeling, turning the dial and switching him from a human to a robot to a monster. Now, this is not the first time Mattel has offered this feature. Much like Iron Jaw, who was inspired by the James Bond character, but an unlicensed, non-union version of him, shall we say. Well, this figure wound up never. There we go, word order. Shipping, and well, the idea stuck around, and you could see he was transformed into Trapjaw. Face, eyebrows, and all. All I did was give him a helmet and change his skin color. So, similarly, boy, I am not talking today. I really should, do that watermelon thing before I record. All right, so Zorak from the Big Jim line. He had a spinning face to go from human to monster. Gee, where have we heard that before? Well, considering Zorak came first and was still a Mattel creation, in fact, he was actually part of a play pattern that also involved Big Jim, who would have an angry face because, you wouldn't want to upset Big Jim or he'd be angry. Geez, any wonder he had a green face like the Hulk. That was so popular when Big Jim was out. These are all recycled Big Jim ideas. So, Manny Faces was born. And the idea of doing a multi-faced character, while originally just kind of a neat play feature, since, well, toys had to have play features, the fact that he could go from a human to a monster and then a neutral robot, there is an extremely deep psychological connection here. And it all goes to the fact that we know from the last year that children love wearing masks. No. I mean, not like these masks. No, I mean, obviously, this is actually a whole issue with children being able to recognize faces. Anyway, I'm talking about these masks. There's a big reason that kids dress up and want to cover their face, because the idea of transforming into something else is extremely aspirational. Well, why would this be? Have you ever tried being a kid? I mean, you've obviously, been a kid, but looking at the world the way a child does, or, through their shoes or tiny sandals, it is a big, scary place because the world's giant. It's filled with giant skyscrapers and giant trucks and, well, giant people called grown-ups that tower over you and stare down at you, which is why you should always get on your knees when talking to a child and be at their eye level. Anyway, enough with the parenting advice. With a world that's full of giant, scary monsters, well, sometimes being the monster or being another person is a way for a child to relate to the monsters around him or her. And by that I mean just the general scariness of being a small child in a big world. Suddenly becoming the thing that scares you the most, or an entirely different being, something that could be just, well, a thing hidden away, an object, shall we say. Both of those are extremely aspirational concepts. And being able to put on a mask and become something else instantly is a core childhood fantasy, or rather, desire. And Manny Faces encompasses that, which is why he has remained so popular. We don't even realize we liked him so much and why, but it was because of the ability with one spin to change him, i.e. ourselves, because toys are avatars of ourselves, into multiple different types of characters. All right, enough with the psychological, child-rearing, etc., etc. You've also come here for Manny Faces trivia and fun facts, so let's jump into that. Back in 1984-85, Mattel was making coffee tables out of cash because Motu was out selling Hot Wheels and Barbie, which meant Motu was going to get an upgrade, and that meant Rastifying it by about 10% and introducing new characters. And because the line was doing so well and was so, well, generating cash, you could afford to spend money on tooling. So new characters that had a lot more tooling were introduced in the line, such as Man-E-Faces here. And like all of the early characters from the launch, he went through quite a few concepts. The idea of doing a character that could change faces was looked at from a few ways. One was snap-on masks, and even doing masks of known characters like Skeletor. Also explored were concepts that were similar to the original Big Jim toy line, with a spinning mechanism, only this time, instead of doing two faces, a happy and sad or human monster, a third face would be introduced, and this would be done through a triangular piece. Now, this was not the only mechanism that was looked at. In fact, some of the designers, and well, a lot of it was Mark Taylor's work, one of the characters he created that he named the Segway. I don't know if that's an official name. Well, I mean, it's official from him, so yeah, it's official. I just don't know if Mattel called it that. I think he named a lot of the characters. Anyway, he explored quite a few iterations, different color schemes, and you can even see this one looks like it was resurrected as a Carius, aka Flipshot, in the New Adventures line. At least that color scheme looks awfully familiar. So when we finally got the traditional blue with purple piping concept, or I guess color scheme and concept, it also needed to, showcase all the faces. And A, B, and can't forget Robot C had to get their own design approval. Now, I always thought it was interesting that face A was the monster. Does that mean that the monster face is the true form of Man-E-Faces? Could it be? Is that why he was usually packaged this way, with the monster side facing out? Or could it just be some kind of crazy cosmic coincidence that Doc Brown talks about? I don't know. But I do know there is a crazy difference with the skin color. So looking at the prototype figure, the skin color, or rather, it was clearly flesh you were looking at. What we see in the final toy as much brighter orange. Maybe he just got a tan. But this has created a lot of, I don't want to call it division, because it's not like people are really, on team, Man-E-Faces and team Whiplash or something. But with a lot of the early art clearly showing him wearing a vest similar to He-Man, or a harness, a John Carter, Barsoom-esque harness, and where you saw his skin, both after his thigh-high boots and his armor on his arms, there seemed to be flesh sticking out in weird places when the character is colored this way. And while he shows up in a lot of the early art, including the Packed-In mini comic and the reverse card art, or rather the art on the reverse of the card. I think that's the proper use of word order. Boy, I'm really not doing well this time. So, looking at that original mini comic, he got an origin, which was actually pretty unique, since while some of the original Wave figures like He-Man and Skeletor got origins, these origins were dropped pretty quickly. He-Man wasn't a barbarian from the jungle, and Skeletor wasn't from another dimension. Now, Man-E-Faces, who gets an origin in the mini-comic as, being poisoned by Skeletor, started off as an actor. That's why he has different sides of him, and that's why he can, be different things. So Skeletor essentially manipulated his actor liking, if you will, and was able to transform him so that he now permanently could be, first into a monster, and then the other two personalities were able to come out. It's kind of like Moon Knight, isn't it? It's like a personality, three personality kind of thing. Boy, getting back to the psychology thing, I can't do that. All right, let's get back to the toy. So while he had the white skin, Caucasian skin in the early art, it went very orange, and some toy lines have gone full orange. With classics, we actually pulled the fans and asked them, do you want us to do white Caucasian skin, or orange, or something in the middle? And with the poll, or I forget how we ran it, but something in the middle actually won, and that's why the classics figure isn't super bright orange. It's more like a kind of a tan, but it could be viewed as orange, which would make it a skin suit like Man-at-Arms. So that was, to me, it was really, what made it a skin suit was, again, the fact that you've got the suit or the skin showing at the top of the legs, and I don't know, a hero wearing like boots all the way, like thigh-high boots. It just didn't register as a child to me. I always saw it as a bodysuit, but a lot of fans who were into the line from the mini comics saw this as flesh, as skin. And that was the compromise for the classics figure. But again, so much, changed. Even, the early art Tila had blonde hair and she wound up being a redhead. So that's how I view it, as just one of those early, color mismatches. I mean, heck, maybe Man-E-Faces should be green like this early art. And in fact, well, because I was sort of dead fast into the idea that it was an orange bodysuit, like Man-at-Arms is wearing a green bodysuit under his armor, when Axel and I created Muckman, no offense, Ninja Turtles, didn't mean to steal a name, just worked. Well, I specifically asked Axel to put him into Man-E-Face's suit, but color it green, to really establish that this was a bodysuit. And so that was my way of sort of like firming that up. So saying this is the green version and Man-E-Face is wearing the orange version. Well, no matter how you see his skin color, whether it's an orange suit or Caucasian skin, another thing that's interesting about Man-E-Faces is his very, very unique weapon that no other figure got. So he had a red blaster with sort of a ribbed handle and, a really interesting trigger mechanism. Now, if you recognize this as Man-E-Face's accessory, well, you may not be unique, because this had an interesting reuse, I guess you could say, in Mattel. It wound up in their Voltron 1984 line as the tail gun on the yellow lion. So, hey, who knew? Well, one other thing about Man-E-Faces, and kind of a last thing that a lot of fans ask about, is the original version that came with free weapons inside limited offer. What is this free weapons inside limited offer? Well, it was a group of maroon shaded weapons that were all recast from the Castle Grayskull mold. They were originally from the Savage He-Man promotion. This was noted in the sales pitch to Mattel. You can listen to the sales pitch on this channel. I'll link it at the end, where they talked about a 9th figure that would be a mail-away. This figure was brought into the Classics line as Wondar, and then eventually into the animation as well. For a long time, people thought it was a Wonder Bread promotion. But no, it was a Mattel promotion where you would mail away, you'd buy 3, get 1 free, and this is what you would get. There was a complaint letter from a mom talking about feeling this was not an original figure. It was just sort of a cheap repaint of He-Man, which it is. And, well, the remaining stock of the figure was distributed at local promotions, such as supermarkets and state fairs. The weapons that came with this mail-away figure, while he usually came with 2, but it was sort of 2 weapons out of a possible 5 or 6, all of the weapons that were left, because the last thing you want to do is sit on loose inventory. So they were basically packaged off with the next figure that was in production, since shipping the figures to local promotions for state fairs and grocery stores was just the figure. The weapons didn't go with that. The weapons were put with the next figure in production, and Man-E-Faces was that. So that's why he comes with all 5 of the Castle Grayskull weapons in maroon. It was the leftover stock that was intended for the Savage He-Man promotion. So they did have a promo for this limited version of Man-E-Faces, noting, basically the first XX 1,000 units or etc. were going to come with these extra weapons, but it was just using up the inventory. And because of this, a lot of fans have seen these weapons as made for Man-E-Faces, or, designed for him. Maybe the axe is what his monster form wields. But yeah, it was just leftover inventory from a promotion that went sour. Now, the latest Man-E-Faces we've gotten from the CGI show on Netflix is interesting, because while it still has the human, monster, and robot forms, the mechanism for the very first time has changed. It's now a wheel that turns, it spins like a wheel on a car, as versus the spinning top mechanism of traditional Man-E-Faces. Progress. And no matter how you choose to, celebrate Man-E-Faces, whether it's through a holiday or beloved memories, or, taking photographs of Man-E-Faces at your job to prove that you brought Man-E-Faces to work. Yes, this is a real thing, people. or if Man-E-Faces helped you deal with child identity crisis and Freudian world identity. I'm just throwing out words at this point. But yes, there's a deep psychological connection to Man-E-Faces and the ability to simply spin a top and immediately become something or someone else. It's a core fantasy, and it's one of the only action figures that was ever put out that had this. Well, obviously the Big Jim figures, but Man-E-Faces taking it to the next level. Human, robot, and monster. It doesn't get more pure kid than that. And that is why Man-E-Faces has been such a success. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you'll share it with others. It's the best way to show support for the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the comments section where I read every comment. I try to respond as much as I can. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.